Okay, welcome to week 3 for our Intro to Fashion Business lecture. I'm going to go ahead and get this recording. We may have students drop in. I've just got a limited time though for our lecture today, so I really couldn't wait on that. I'm going to go ahead and share our screen for our slideshow of this week in fashion business. So to get your attendance credit, you want to try and attend the weekly live lecture if possible. If not, look for a recording of the live lecture. I cannot guarantee that I can get one done every week, but if it is there, make sure that you click on that, watch that recording, and do the assignment associated with it in order to earn those 10 points. And most important of all, is to, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop sharing and now share again. Excuse me. Yep. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the, how did I do that? I've somehow closed out of my slideshow. Give me just a moment to log that back in. That was not what I intended to do. Okay. Ta-da. All right. Come on up. We're going to share this screen again. Okay. Hopefully we are still doing that. Okay. Back to this. Your discussion forums. Those are 25 points. If you miss those, you will get knocked down an entire grade. I've seen it happen. So these are very important. Do not miss out on them. When those are live links, you are responsible for doing that discussion forum. At this point, you've been in the program long enough. There's really no reason you should be forgetting these. It's something you do every week. All right. The other two main focuses this week are addressing our business plan, and I'll have that broken down here in just a moment, and the dressy situation activity, putting into action maybe a mock walkthrough with a customer. Now, the business plan, the marketing plan, financial plan, operations plan. These are all sections within the business plan that you are going to address. Once you have finished those, you actually kind of go back up into a little bit prior page in the business plan to the executive summary. I have you do this last because these are short summaries, whereas in the plan, I want more in-depth explanation on that, not just one or two sentences at this stage. If this is part of the plan, I should have 2 to 3 paragraphs explaining what you're doing in that. And that goes for last week as well. If you had just put 1 or 2 sentences down, then I need you to go back and look through those and beef that up. There's so much more that you should be telling me. You're not giving me enough. And if you have questions kind of about what that should look like, in the back of your textbook, there is an example. I'm trying to get the actual page here. There we go. There is an example business plan starting on page 303, and it's got some really good information, beefy information about it. Now, that one is set up for a retail store. Yours does not have to necessarily be a retail store unless you're wanting your business to be one. But if you're wanting to start off just with like a small home sewing business, do the ones that I've got listed in your template, because those are the ones important to thinking out your business. And state your business's name again and again and again, as like, write it in third party perspective, saying, such and such business will employ so and so many different sewers, or a cutter, or blah blah blah, so on. But use that. It makes the reader realize this business could already be existing. That's kind of what you want to plant in their mind. And you'll notice, though, when you look at this sample one in the back of the book, page 303, that there is a paragraph or more, depending on how much information is needed for that section. Now, the marketing plan this week, there's not a direct chapter saying marketing, but the information that you provide in that marketing plan is actually kind of pertinent to things that you covered in chapter 3. That was back in week 1, and that's where you did a lot of the analyzing of the industry, deciding who that customer is. You've also kind of thought about, this is chapter 4 and 8, identifying the product that you're going to offer according to what's needed out there. And that's from that information you found out. And chapter 8 is reaching customers and driving those sales. So driving the sales is part of the marketing. So that marketing plan kind of takes information that's addressed in all 3 of those chapters, and this is where you roll it out to present what you found out and how you're going to set your business apart and reach out there to customers out there that would spend money for your product. So you've got to, convince somebody of that. The financial plan, that goes into really understanding what it's going to take to set up a business, run a business, and be successful at it. And success does not necessarily mean that you are making millions right away. In fact, making millions is a small percentage of people that really go into business. They've hit it at the right time, the right concept, everything aligned. Most people can make a good living at their business. The perk to that is that you are your own boss. You don't have to answer to anybody else. So if you can make yourself your sustainable living for what you want to do, you are being successful. And at first, a successful business is one that breaks even. All right. So, and that doesn't even happen sometimes until about the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th year. You have to work up to that. We don't just, be able to do a cartwheel and go to the Olympics right away. You'd have to work up in gymnastics to arrive at the Olympics if that's what you were trying to do. Same thing with a business. Same thing with all those skills that you're learning to put into making a business a reality. So the financial plan helps guide you in understanding, first, what is it going to take to get into business? What are you going to do? What kind of machines do you need? What kind of money do you have to purchase all this stuff up front to have on hand? If you're going to design a line, you've got to purchase all your fabrics and everything you need to put your line together to be able to go to market. So then you're going to have to pay the travel expenses and the hotel while you're there, because you're going to be there a couple days. And then you got to spend time at the market making those sales, convincing buyers from stores to buy your product to put in their stores. You got to get those orders. And then after that, then you got to have money to buy all the amount of fabric you need to fulfill those orders, pay the factories, get them sewn, send them to the stores. Then the stores pay you. So you're going to need some money up front. You got to think about, what is it you're doing? How do you get into business? How much money is it going to take? How much is it going to take to sustain that? To sustain that, how much do I have to sell each month to be able to do what I need to do? And so, yes, these are mock projected numbers, but they've got to be based in reality. You do have to think it through. You can't just start throwing numbers out there willy-nilly. So make sure you think about that. Look at the different components of that financial plan. One of them is your startup costs. Should be in there. Cash requirements. Break even. When do you make enough to actually be covering everything? What do you expect to sell each month and for an entire year? What would you need cash on hand each month and stuff? So that's in there. The operations plan. That one's actually probably a little bit easier. It's probably something you're more familiar with if you've ever worked in any kind of business. They probably gave you an employee manual and told you what time you're supposed to be there, gave you a definite description of your job duties in the position you're in. Somebody else in a different position, a cashier, a line worker, a supervisor, or whatever. I'm comparing it to a restaurant because that's where a lot of people might have some experience. What is that procedure? What are your duties? What's the procedure and the expectation? Inventory is also kind of lumped into this operations plan. How often do you need to replenish inventory? Like how often do you need to rebuy black and white thread, interfacing, things that you would need that go into garments? And if you're making a line, how many times a year are you going to go to market? Typically, you would go at least twice. You want to be there for the big ones, spring, summer, and fall 1 and 2. But you might go to the winter one. You might go to the holiday one. You might go to both the early spring and the summer. Plan that out. How many trips are you going to take? How much is that going to cost to you? And different things. Once you have those in place, as well as some of the other business plan sections that you did last week, then you can back in and do your executive summary. You're just summing up the information that then as the reader goes through the business plan, when they get to that section, then it's more in depth, laid out for them. So, Haley, I'd say after reading yours last week, everything you gave me in the sections is barely enough for your executive summary. You need to go into each of those sections and really beef it up. Give me paragraphs explaining it more and more. All right, dressy situation. This activity is kind of twofold. You've got to come up with the price. What are you going to charge that customer for designing the dress and sewing it? And how do you wrap that up and finish the job? So I've got an example here. You will want to work a little spreadsheet for yourself. And I'll see if tomorrow I can get a little recording done to explain this in like Google Sheets, how you would set this up. And you're going to really base it on just assume one of the dress designs. But your fabric is different price points. Some different examples of fabric. I don't know what yours actual came out to be, but depending on what those price points are, we're assuming, let's say, 2 yards go into making the dress. Well, fabric one at $5 a yard, you only have $10 worth of fabric in there. But if you're using fabric two at $10 a yard, you still need 2 yards. Well, that's $20 already into the price of the dress. If you go over here, fabric four, that's even more. That's $12 a yard. So $2 using that in the dress. I'm sorry, $2, 2 yards in the dress. That's $24. Now the same trim, the same like zipper and hook and eye used on the dress, it's $2 no matter which fabric they go with because it's the same zipper. Now then down here under salary, since we decided we'll just go with a said price for whichever design that they pick, you plug in that same price no matter which fabric they use. So the salary 125 is talking about how much you would charge for sewing it. For altering or making the patterns, because she wanted some changes to that original design, is $20. Fittings, She comes and spends time at your studio to try on that dress. That's time you're not sitting down and sewing, but you are still dealing with the project. You charge for that. And operating expenses. That's talked about in the lessons for Sewing for Profit. And it's $8. That takes care of utilities, having your light on, your electricity running for your iron, for your machines, all the paper that went into your design, patterns and things. So $8. So you've already got $162 is pretty much your set charges for all labor, and then the operating expenses included. So it's this fabric price that really changes. But a lot of times what I'll do with a client is, instead of giving just one price, because maybe in one of these fittings, she might change her mind on something and want something adjusted or changed, or there may be some major issues that take a lot more time than you first anticipated. I usually go ahead and give them a range. So in this case, I may say to my client, I think our arrived at price should be somewhere between $175 to $190. That way, she knows, depending on which fabric she decides to go with, she can go to the low end of the spectrum or the high end. And so when I give a quote, I give a range. Now, when it comes to the end product, and I've actually added up and know exactly how much time I put in labor-wise, then I'll know, which one I really. And the invoice is the final sheet that you want to be sure that you have filled out and you provide your customer. It excuse me, helps you in keeping record of what jobs you've done, how much money you made on that job, gives you a client record. Who did you sew for? Maybe later you want to send out some marketing information. You have that person's name and address. You can do that. It also makes you appear professional. And people are more apt to part with money, and even more money, when they know that they have trust in that transaction, that it's above table, it's professional. If it's just an exchange of cash and this or that and a word of mouth, there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't really protect you. And in the long run, it can hurt you, because the customer may want to take advantage, thinking this, you're not really doing this as a real job. You're just doing this on the side kind of thing. Well, that may be the case as you get started, but you want to be taken seriously as a professional. So that is the invoice. And don't be afraid to, state the price and stick to the price that you come to at the end for the price of whatever the project was. All right. And if they don't want to pay it, you can't hold them over the fire and make them pay it, but remind them that they entered this relationship and this transaction and contract agreement with you. And if they are not happy with it, then they don't have to come back. But hopefully if they are, they will come back. If they've had a good experience, they'll turn around and tell their friends and family and recommend you whenever those folks need a project done. And, when I was doing my custom business, I only did some business cards, put them on a bulletin board for maybe about 3 months. And after that, I was getting enough calls just from word of mouth, people telling somebody else and so calling me, wanting something done. And before I knew it, I had enough business doing that. I didn't even have to spend time really marketing for that. Now, that should wrap up my slideshow here. I did hear the buzzer ding. Hi, Haley. How are you?
Good.
Good. All right. I'm sorry. I'm kind of pressed for time. I've got a meeting I've got to get to. So I was having lecture from 2:45 to 3:15. I've got most of all of that. I don't have time to start back at the beginning, but I will have the lecture recording posted. It'll be a little bit later this evening after all the videos have processed. Excuse me. That'll have that back up on there that you can take a look at it. Okay. All right. But do you have any questions for me right now? I've got about 5 minutes if you do.
Not yet. I haven't really looked at the assignments yet. I've been
Okay.
busy this week with the Father's Day and stuff. Hey.
Hey. So you want to get talkative when Mama talks, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If I have any, I'll message you. I haven't really looked at everything yet. I've looked at it a little bit, but not really enough to have questions yet.
All right. Gotcha. Well, one of the main things is check out the terms for this week. Okay. If you go down that list and find those terms in your workbook or textbook, that'll take you to the sections and stuff that, things you'll expect to see on the quiz for the week. And I'll be getting that together tomorrow. Look at those slideshows under each of the lessons for that. It kind of sums up a lot of what's in chapters. And then kind of as you work on the business plan, you can look back at those sections, really read them through. The other thing that I really want to point out on page 303 is a sample business plan that is in here. Somebody, had already filled it out for their business. And I want you to really look at that and kind of see how that's written, because on the stuff you did last week, you need more, okay? What you've got, like one sentence or something, that's barely enough for like your executive summary. I'm looking for like 2 or 3 paragraphs for those sections, okay? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Is that the one I did like the first week?
No, this was business plan, the one you're doing on the Google Doc.
Oh,
okay. Okay. And on that, I didn't want you to write on that one. I wanted you to make a copy of that and write on your copy. Leave mine alone, because the next person who comes along, your business plan would show up to them. But I went in and I redid everything. So use the one you've got. Keep adding on that. Okay. All right. He's going to knock your teeth out in a minute. No. But yeah, go back and look at that, because there's more you can tell me about it. Come on, you can tell me more. And then this week, even though it looks like 4 sections, 3 of them are sections. The 4th one goes back to the beginning of the plan, and that's just kind of where you put the summary in. And so like some of the sections you did last week, what you have written is maybe enough for the summary of those, but tell me more about that process. Really, make believe, put me in that business. Describe it for me in the sense that I feel like I could be standing right there in the middle of it and get an idea of what's going on around me. Okay? Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I am sorry. I've got to run because I've got our faculty meetings this afternoon. But definitely, as you get into it, if you've got questions, email me.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.